Hello everybody, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming bringing you another video. Enjoying all the videos and content we produce, don't forget to click on that subscribe button, click on that like button, and don't be afraid to share. Don't forget to click on the notification button, customize it however you want, but that way you're notified whenever we publish another video. Hello everyone. Today we are talking about greater rifts, and in particular we are talking about tips, tricks, suggestions, strategies, all those fun things that will help you get to your next key level. We're talking high level push strategies that really kick in when you're trying to run your greater rift and you're just missing it by 30 seconds, a minute, minute and a half. We're going to be covering all these things that will help you get it down so you can time these rifts and on to the next level. These strategies are what are used in the high-end rifts. So when you're pushing high 130s, 140s, all the way up to 150s, the strategies don't really change between that number, between high 130s and the 150s. You just need to be a little bit better at them and identifying a few key things as you're going. But without further ado, we're going to get into it here. So let's help you get to the next GR level. Let's help you push those leaderboards and move on to higher, bigger, more glorious things. Let's get into it. All right, covering the basics to start. Your follower should have their relic focus token that they cannot die. Need to equip that. They need to be wearing the Flavor of Time so the pylon effects last twice as long. They need to have an Oculus ring so when you kill something, it's going to create that area of focus power. And lastly, they need to be wearing Nemesis bracers, so when you click on a pylon, it spawns an enemy champion and elite out of it, so that you can kill that elite for progress. Now for follower advanced strategies. So, on your follower, this is going to be a bad example because this guy's shittily geared, but it might be further to the point. As you can see, they have certain abilities, and these abilities enhance based on their stats. For example, the Templar here, he charges and then he's going to stun enemies for a certain duration. So he's got 3.9 seconds, and that is based on his strength. If we take off some of his strength pieces, we'll just do this, and it's slowly starting to drop. Continue to take away, he's getting less and less and less stun duration. So basically, to maximize a follower, they need to have 25,000 of their main stat. So this Templar here would need 25,000 strength. And then this would cap out at, I believe, 10 seconds for these. The heal would be for more. The regen, the second life, of course, that's not going to change. The heal would, though. But it increases their duration, and each one is a little bit different. The Enchantress as well, she could give you more, increase the damage that they would be, the duration they take increased damage for. She could increase your resistance, your cooldown. The Scoundrel does things like gives you attack speed, critical hit chance, those sorts of things. So if you get them to their max stat of 25,000, then you can maximize the bonuses that they are giving you. And then there's other things that you can do to help with their efficiency. So we got the basics here of wanting them to have the Nemesis bracers, the Oculus ring, the Flavor of Time, the things so they don't die. There's other things that we can do, like we give them a Unity, and then if we wear a Unity, they share damage with us. We have items that we can give them, assuming I can find it. Where did it go? All right. So for this, for example, the Templar can't use this because he can't have two-handers, but the Enchantress could. So the Sultan of Blinding Sand, the unique affix there, the secondary affix, is that it can blind on hit for up to 40% of the time. There is the Court of the Sherma, which creates a circle that blinds enemies, so that could help with survivability. There is, so here's Unity, all damage taken is split between wearers of this item. Where did I put? There is a dagger that freezes enemies below 20%. And so that is incredibly handy against the Rift Guardian. I'm just looking for it, and probably, of course, I'm not going to be able to find where I put it. Apparently I put it on somebody, so that's why I can't find it. But there's things like that. There's certain items that you can put on your follower to maximize their efficiency. One, getting them to their 25,000 main stat for maximum bonus, as well as they can provide additional benefits to you through the blind to CC mobs. They can then they can also freeze them. Like the Templar has the freezing shield. If he blocks something, it can freeze them. He's got Thunder Fury, which might help deal lightning damage and stuff like that, which might help kite mobs and whatever. So there's just things you can do to take your follower to the next level and maximize their stats and maximize their effectiveness, helping you out. This isn't going to help them with their AI. They're still going to stand in the wrong place or sometimes stay behind and end up preventing you from kiting mobs. There's nothing we can do about that, but we can maximize their benefit that they're giving us for the stats, cooldown, damage, all those sorts of things. We can maximize that, as well as give them a few items to help us out with blinding enemies and those sorts of things as well. So tip number 1 that people probably forget and don't really fully utilize is on your follower, we have the Oculus Ring. So as you can see here, we have the Oculus Ring equipped on our follower. Chance to create an area of focus power on killing a monster, which will increase your damage up to 85%. It procs all the time as you go through the rift. As you see, there it is there. I know I'm only on 25. That's just for explanation purposes. It appears all the time, and people do not fully utilize jumping into it. The damage increase is massive. Like, it's up to 85%. Like, just jump into it. There are going to be times based on your class, or maybe it's in a dangerous position, you won't want to jump into it. But as you're pushing, there will be tons of times that the Oculus Ring is going to spawn, and people just forget to jump inside. I know there's a lot going on. It's easy to miss it. There's also a lot of like explosions, you know, spells, all that sort of stuff, like colors on the screen. Sometimes it's not easy to see, but you're going to do yourself huge favors if you just make a mental effort and focus on getting in it a lot more. Now, true, sometimes you're like a melee build, you gotta be up close and personal and punch them in the face, and then the Oculus spawns at range, and there's not going to be things you can do about it in that way. But there's going to be tons of times that it's going to be sitting right there, and all you have to do is take 2 steps and get into it, and you'll get that big damage boost. So just do yourself a favor and go jump into it. There's lots of times I watch some of my friends doing 150 clears in their solo, and the Oculus Ring will be right beside them, and they're fighting over here, and they're a range class, so instead of like jumping into it and then continuing to deal damage, they're just standing over here and missing that big damage increase. Do yourself a favor, see it, get in it, you're good to go. One thing I will say, if you are using squirts and it is in an unsafe position where you have a 10 stack of squirts, and there might be arcane beams, poison, all that stuff, do not lose your squirts. Obviously, 100% damage is greater than the 85. So be smart about it. But if you have no squirts or 1 or 2 and it's sitting over there, jump into it. You're going to get the bigger damage boost. All right, covering another one of the basics, we're going to talk about fishing. So fishing is creating a greater rift and looking for specific maps. This is a prime example. The higher you get in GRs once you're done doing your speeds, basically when you start running into where you need 12, 13, 14 minutes to time something, you are going to need to consider fishing. There are some maps that are just a complete write-off, like this one. I call this one the Barracks. It is just terrible. It is along the lines of the Adria map, Ruins of Corvus, as well as Halls of Agony. It is, for a prime example, just go through here. We have tons of tight spaces, a lot of doorways. It is tough to pull things through. Can't exactly drag and kite. And then the other things that is really problematic to them, they are long as hell. So you are forced into these tight spaces with questionable density, very low drag potential, and they turn into a huge waste of time. So then our strategy is to go fishing. So we're going to throw this one back and try again. And they've made this much easier because now we can just go to Auric in town, close a greater rift, and step into the next one. There's only about 5 or 6 maps that we want to go. With this one, I call this one Dark Festering. I can't remember what it's actually called. This is another one of my no-go maps. So then I would step back through, close it, and then try again until I get one that I want to run with. This is what I consider a minus map or a B plus, and I actually run this one, so then I would just take off and go do it. But if it's another one that I don't want, then I would step back through and close it, assuming it lets me through the door. There we go, go through, close it, and then we would go through again. Now that being said, one thing that we're going to, another, like this is Halls of Agony, a hard no to that one, close that one. Thing to note is you're going to need a lot of keys. So I farmed 400, I had 500 earlier, so farm a bunch of keys, and then you start doing this. You will go through a lot of keys this way. I was trying 150s on my wizard the other night, and I blew through 200 keys in the night. Out of those 200 keys, you might get 15 attempts, maybe 20 that you actually run. Because again, you're looking for key maps. We're looking for Desolate Sands, Festering Woods, Field of Misery, Battlefield, Shrouded Moors is not bad. Spires is okay. Like we're looking for those kind of big open maps where there's space to kite and lots of potential. We want to stay away from tight corridors, questionable maps where sometimes we have bad layouts, like Pandemonium Fortress, like those kind of mediocre maps. We don't want them as our first tile. We want a very good first tile to set ourselves up for the most chance of success, because we're going to need that big lead so that if we get a crappy tile on our second map or even third, we still have enough space to spawn the Guardian, and we're going to need 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes longer, to kill these Guardians the higher we go. So we're going to need those key maps in our first one, because that is going to give us the biggest chance for success. Okay, let's talk about Pylons. So like this bad boy here, there are the 5 different types. So there's power, attack speed, conduit, shield, and channeling. They spawn as you progress through a greater rift. There is a small chance, so as we kill things, we get progress. So as we can see here in this particular one that I'm AFKing in at 89%. So that's how far it was. But anyways, I got a pylon here. A pylon has a chance to very, 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 very small chance to spawn with 0% progression. Sometimes when you come into a greater rift, you'll just see like a pylon sitting right inside the door at 0%. That is a very, very small chance to happen. But as you progress through the rift and you kill mobs and elites and make progress, for every 1% progress you make, it is 3% chance to spawn a pylon. So, which means that as you watch your progression, if you have not had a pylon yet, and you're at 33%, you would be guaranteed a pylon. You'd be at 99%, so basically guaranteed. My theory is that there's a 1% chance to spawn a pylon as soon as you enter the Greater Rift, which would then make 33%, 100% chance to spawn it. Anyway, so at 33% progression, if you haven't seen a pylon yet, you would need to go to like the next pylon spawn location, because each map has like a fixed location where they would spawn, and you would find the pylon sitting there. So, and then of course, then it's 66, and then 99 would be the next guaranteed ones. Or, you know, if you spawn one at 20%, your next guaranteed pylon would be at 53%. Because of course, as you go progress through with each percent, you get that 3% chance. So there's the chance that you will spawn a pylon at like 15% progression. You get a 45% chance to spawn it. It spawns. Then your next one would be up to 33% after that. So you constantly just want to keep an eye on your progress bar. Over time, you get a gauge as to how far along it is, and you want to be watching that. There'll be lots of times in my rifts when I'm pushing, I'm watching my progress bar. I will physically go over and check just to see, and when I do get a pylon, I will also go and check to make a note so I know mentally what it was when I got it. Because as you're pushing, it's key to know when that next pylon might be coming. You could be struggling along, pulling like 5, 6 elites all at once, getting through trash. It's a real struggle, and you're making progress slowly but surely, and you could even be behind the timer, but all you need is that pylon, and it could change everything. So if you're making solid progress, you could be way behind. You know, you're dragging 5 or 6. You could actually be like, you know, significantly behind, feel like 20% behind, but you're right close. Get that pylon, turns into a conduit, and then you know, now you're ahead after you've utilized it. So it's important to know what your progress is and your chance towards getting the next pylon, because there might be times where you just want to go and leave the key and start again, and you could be so close to getting that pylon that could turn your key around. There's lots of builds in particular that as you're pushing and you're usually way behind the timer, I shouldn't say way behind, but you're behind the timer, and then you get that conduit or the whatever power shield, that next pylon that you're looking for, and it changes your fate. So just keep a mental note of what your progress is towards the next pylon. When you get to that 33%, go looking for it, go to the next spawn point. Most maps have several pylon spawn points. There's only a couple that really suck. I'm thinking like the aqueducts or the sewer one from Act 2, where they only really spawn in the circles or off to the sides. Like that one's kind of terrible. But for the most part, most of them have lots of spawn points like this. As you are pushing, it is going to become more and more important to get a pylon for the boss. It'll just help you kill it that much faster. The higher you go, the more health the Rift Guardians have. In the 150 push I did on my monk earlier this season, it was key to get a good either shield or power pylon for the boss. It just that makes that much more difference. It really speeds up the kill time, obviously. So like here in this example, so I know that this is just a 25, but for example, there'll be some builds where maybe you need ads for the boss or something like that. If you're really close at spawning the boss and it's kind of like you're in that Hail Mary situation, you could choose to save a pylon or save two, as I've done here, and then you would be able to pop those and utilize both of them on the boss at the same time. They're for like AoE specific builds that really you need a Rift Guardian with ads. This is a key strategy. I'm thinking of the Traegule's Necro in Season 27. The idea is to spawn the boss with a pylon or two up, and then pop the pylons and drag the ads over to the boss to help with the AoE damage to kill the boss, because that build is just horrendous on single target damage. That being said, if you decide to use these on the boss, but you're more single target build, there are things you can do. So if we spawn these here, this is a shield, so I would lose this, but you can always just go through to town. And then when you come back, obviously this is taking a couple seconds, but then when you come back, the ads are gone. Shield does leave when you go to town, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. That was just an example. If we did this with power, it would stay. But I'll show you a different trick you do with power. And this is what I did on my 150 with my monk, because the monk is more of a single target. You can pop it, you get the benefit, and then if you don't want to fight the ads, you could just step through to the previous map, come back through, the ads are gone, you still have your bonus here, and then you would just go back to DPSing the Guardian. Okay, let's talk strategy when you find a conduit in a high level key. So probably what's happening at the point you find it, you've been fighting a ton of mobs, you've been kiting them all over, dragging them with you, you have a few elites chasing you, and then you find the magical conduit pylon, our holy grail. So what we're going to want to do is you're going to want to drag the elites that you have been kiting up towards the pylon, and then you want to explore the rest of the map if it's feasible to do so. So in this particular case, I've already explored most of the map. I can see up there I have a speed pylon. I have elites that I had previously tagged before finding the conduit up coming down, and then I'm backtracking to find the elites that I have and dragging them up towards the conduit pylon. So ideally, you kind of want to try to get as many of them as possible, and then you just drag them up. So here, we're also going to get rid of trash because you only have a minute with the conduit, and they will not, they have no preference who they're going to shock, so they will shock trash. So we want to get the trash down so that the only targets that they have are elites. So we're just going to work away here, get everything stacked up, get rid of the trash to a place that we're comfortable, and then we're going to pop it and go nuts on the trash, or sorry, on the elites that we have accumulated. So the best thing that we want to do here is, one, we want to make sure that we survive, because any death, obviously, if we're playing softcore, is going to reduce our time with the buff, and if you're hardcore, well, then you're just dead. So we're going to utilize our survivability, stay to the outside, making sure that we're shocking as many as possible. We don't need to really collect the orbs until after everything is dead, but if it's feasible to do so, we're going to pick them up, because there we were on the outside. And then after it's done, we take a look and see how much time we have left. So that's about 15 seconds left on the conduit, and we're going to utilize it to go after trash, and then look for another set of elites that we could potentially start working away on. So in this particular case, we didn't find any, but we were able to make solid progress on trash and continue to get some progression that would eventually lead to our kill here in the 150. So ideally, what we just want to drag as many as we can to the pylon, set everything up, get rid of the trash, and then pop the bad boy and collect all that progression. And we're going to pretty much guarantee, if we get like a 4 or 5 man condi, to guarantee another pylon spawn in close proximity. Sometimes you'll get it down, you'll still have 30 seconds left on your conduit, and then you'll find another pylon, depending on what it is, if you feel like you should set something up, or you could just pop it right away and get that damage onto the elite out of the new pylon, and maybe pick up one more as well. Sometimes you won't get a choice and they'll give you a pylon in a bad spot, and then all you're going to get is like 1 or 2. In those particular cases, then you're just going to want to try to maximize as much as possible. The only thing I'll say is, keep in mind, you don't want to spend too much time setting up the conduit. Probably just about 30 seconds, maybe 45 at most. Don't go too far to drag things. Like, just take what's in close proximity, a couple blinks or a few, movement speed or whatever you want to say to get there, drag them up to it. You don't want to go searching too far, because that'll eat up time, and then by the time you get back and pop the conduit, you're going to be further behind than when you started. So it's a great catch up or a great surge for progression, but you don't want to waste too much time setting it up, but you do want to be efficient with the time you spend setting it up, if that makes sense. Pull in what is close, explore a little bit, pull in what's close, blow up trash, pop the conduit, blow up the elites, and GG. Another thing to note, because we are going to be pushing, time is of the essence. Getting lost on a map can be catastrophic. It can cost you so much valuable time, especially when you're just missing a rift by less than 10 seconds or even 30 seconds. It can be the difference between a kill and a timed run versus missing it. So just for example, in this rift here, knowing what to do based with the map tile that you're given is key. So as you can see here, like this is like the Mytheo, Pandemonium, or whatever map. When we come up to, this map in particular has a couple big rooms, but they have all these short corridors. And knowing that you should always turn and go down the straight line, and you should never branch up, is going to save you valuable time. If you start going up here and then you got to backtrack, you're going to lose valuable time. Sometimes there are elites back up in these parts, but your odds of killing them, unless you're on like a speed run, is going to be quite low. And the time it takes to, if you found an elite here, by the time you drag it all the way down to here and down into this big room, you're going to cost yourself lots and lots of time. On these kind of maps, when you're pushing, the whole idea is to get into the big room, pull as much stuff together, kill as much as you can, move and try to get to the next big room, kill everything there, and then try to get off the map. In this map here, there'd only be really 2 fight points, one room here, and then obviously because I was speeding through here, I got the 2 pylons. You're most likely only going to get 1 pylon spawn, and then you would utilize that to the best of your ability and then move on to the next map. So don't get lost. I've lost quite a few keys while pushing, you just lose those fractions of a second, and they add up over time. So like on this run here, if you had one up here, or then you start going this long way around here, you could cost yourself overall 15 to 20 seconds just from the whole running without even thinking about kiting mobs and trying to create a nice stack that you need in order to get progress and push. Well, this is a handy thing just while making this happen. So we zoned into, and this is Halls of Agony. This is one of the worst map tiles you can possibly get. It is as bad as the Ruins of Corvus that Adria is in. So these are long maps, lots of rooms, a lot of choke points, very few big areas in which you can kill everything. Obviously, I'm in a low rift here, so this isn't bad. But this is one thing that you can do. Say you're on a previous, like you've made significant progress, you're ahead, you come to this map, and there's a speed. There are some builds that just skip speed altogether because the attack speed really doesn't help you that much, depending on your build, or you already have enough elites, and then spawning this extra elite could be detrimental, and you could, your survivability could be in question. But if you do have it, and you find that you go from an okay map, I mean that one was questionably okay, to this map, which is terrible, or the Adria map, so Ruins of Corvus, both terrible, you can just pop this and just take off running. Utilize the speed and get off the map as quickly as possible. Like, just ignore absolutely everything, run to the exit, try to maximize, keep your lead, because in this map, like, we have very few actual fight points, so you just want to get off. Of course, I'm on a low thing here, so I'm going to spawn the Guardian, but we're just going to ignore that. And the idea is to get off the map as quickly as possible. As we're still running here, trying to find the exit. We still have, I don't know, a minute and a half left on the speed. But so, that took us, what do we have left here? Let's just say that took us 30 seconds. But if you were to try to fight along here, like arguably there's maybe one point here that you would fight if you could drag those, but even that would be a big time waster. But all these tight corners, there's nothing you can really do. Maybe in here would have been an okay spot, and then down here. But really, you just want to get off the map as quick as possible and then see what the next map would be. So in this particular case, we got another, I don't know, I want to say like a C+ rated map with the Mathael map. What do I even want to call this? I know what map. Pandemonium Fortress. So that kind of a map. So I would utilize the speed and jump off and get to the next one, and then reconsider my options once I got to the last map. The worst thing is trying to fight on this one. I would only ever fight on this map if I was at 80, maybe 80% progress, and then trying to get the extra 20 if I was tighter on time. If I wasn't tight on time and I had a little bit of leeway, I would just run to those big areas, and as soon as I got any sort of progress or pretty much wrapped it up, move on to the next. I wouldn't bother trying to drag and kill elites on this map or the Adria map, because that would just be so time wasting trying to get them through all these tight spaces. So I would utilize the speed and get off. That's my recommendation when you run into this. Wanted to go over another strategy, and that is kiting from the front, or as some would say, herding cattle from the front. So we have our path, a bunch of trash that is coming down, so we happen to be on a festering, so we have that nice open space, and we need to keep pulling them along. So we're just trying to stay in front of them, keeping damage hitting them, keeping their attention, and just slowly walking them down and exploring more and more of the map. Rather than jumping back into the back and fighting the guys at the back, we're just going to constantly keep this forward momentum. So in this particular group, we got a couple elites, and we're just going to slowly walk them down and keep exploring and just dragging them into more of the map. And as you can see, we actually get to uncover a shield pylon, and we're just getting constant damage onto these guys. We haven't lost any of the elites yet. We have them all with us, and this is like a perfect setup that we want to be. So we blink back there just to make sure that no elites were straggling, and then we get to slowly pull them closer to the pylon and set them up. And then of course we want to explore out a little bit because we have a big power up. And again, we're back to kiting from the front, back to where we want to be to pull them in close to the pylon for them when we're all set up, so we can go ham and pop it just like that. And then everybody's where we want them to be, and we're going to utilize that pylon to the maximum potential. Let's identify why you're failing the key. We got to ask ourselves, is it because we are dying too much? Is it because we are lacking damage? Are we just not playing well? What we need to do all depends on what is causing us not to progress, sorry. If you are dying, I'm just going to more than 3 times, even 3 times sounds a bit much. But if you're dying more than 3 times before you reach the Rift Guardian, you're probably a little too squishy. So what you may need to do is readjust your Paragon and put more points into Vitality, or look into your gear, see if maybe you're missing something that is going to add to some survivability, and plan accordingly. It could be just swapping out some gems. For some classes, like a Crusader, using diamonds in your gear gives you the extra resist all, and that is needed in order to endure some of the poison and arcane damage that exists as you push higher. Other classes might be weak on armor, and so they want to put in dexterity gems or rubies, the strength gems, into your gear, because that turns into armor. Gear being your legs and your chest, those will turn into armor. Helm and weapon obviously have different effects that happen when you put gems into that. So you'll want to look at that. Or you can always inspect the leaderboard. Sometimes somebody who's done a little bit higher than you might know something that you don't. So you could just go and inspect, see what they're wearing, see if they're running a slightly different setup, and go from there. So in this particular case, it's a different build, but maybe you notice that they're wearing the Captain Crimson set and you're not, or maybe they're wearing the Guardians set and you're not. Something like that might just help a different way of thinking and help give you that idea, or help with your survivability or damage and get you to the next level. There's lots of information out there. There's lots of different strategies that work. Maybe it'll work based on the gear stats that you have versus something else that you're trying. So keep that in mind. And if it's a damage thing, then maybe we need to look at our augments. So here we just have a 125 augment into our chest. Maybe you don't have 125s, maybe you just have 100s, whatever they are. Maybe then you need to look into improving your augments. The idea, of course, is to get 13 pieces of good gear and augment them all. And then even just increasing the augment strength in your gear can be a big difference. So here, for example, let's just say if I was 13 of 13 and I had 125s, but if I moved up to a 150, so it'd be an extra 25 levels, which would be another 125 main stat, times that by 13, we'd get another 1625 strength into our character, which would mean we were dealing more damage, as well as we get more survivability from the main stat that is added to our character. So just something like that is to consider, that if we're kind of capped out, that is another option as well. And then to get higher augments, maybe you just need to do some group play and farm some higher key levels to help get that up. If you're having trouble finding a group, don't be afraid to make your own. You can always just do looking for members and create your own group, and then people know, like if you want to run 140s, then you get a group running 140s, and so on and so forth, just to help get your gem ups, and that could make a big difference. Another thing to consider is that not all ancient pieces are better than regular pieces. So case in point, here are my gloves. They are a quad damage pair of gloves. So I have attack speed, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and cooldown, which is ideal stats for my character. I could have had an ancient pair of gloves that only maybe had critical hit chance, strength, vitality, and then cooldown, and that would technically be a DPS loss, even though I could augment it, because I would be missing 2 damage stats that I need. So not all pieces are created equal. Not all ancients or primals are actually useful. So you may just want to consider that. You can use the D3 planner over on Max Roll to help min-max your gear. I was doing that earlier. Found out that some pieces, especially when you get looking at modifiers and how they benefit you, here on the Convention of Elements, is a 198 really better than a 193 with certain stats. You'd plug it in there and find out what the difference is. And so those sorts of things are things that we have to consider when we're looking at pushing, and when we're hitting that wall. It is time to start min-maxing and taking a closer look at our items, where our stats are, our Paragon, and just see what we might be able to tweak to do something a little bit differently that might help us get us over that edge. Welcome to Festering Woods, one of the other A tier, S tier maps, or how you want the rating system to be. This is one of the top ones that you would want to look for when you're fishing for the rift for pushing. The reason is it has pretty wide open areas. Yes, there are some obstacles there that can be sometimes problematic, but there are easy funnel points. So you have all this white space here, and you can just pull in and down and constantly move forward. They also have this little cheat area where you can run through here. It's a little bit troubling, sometimes a pain to kite things through there, but the option is there. So you have all these funnel points. They're kind of wide. You do want to be careful with the pathing you take because they follow the path you take. So for example, if I was kiting down through here, I would not walk through this little pathway here. Some of them are a lot tighter than that. Things may get stuck. Instead, take the big open area and make sure they come along through. This map is phenomenal. This tile in particular is just okay, but there is a four corners one where you have all this open area. And you can kind of just do one, whoops, as I throw the map, like 1, 2, 3, 4, pulls in. This is also the map where I know I got a speed and a shield, but where you hope to get a conduit and you can get one of those massive 5, 6, 7, 8-man condies because you can drag elites from the start and keep dragging them until you spawn that pylon. So this is just a phenomenal map. To me, it is the second best map, only behind Fields of Misery. Welcome to Battlefields. This is probably the third best map, right behind Fields of Misery and Festering Woods. Reason being, it is long, it is wide, and it is open. So as you can see here, we have very wide tunnels, or rather areas to pull through. You can drag for days and days on this map. There are a few obstacles occasionally, but there's lots of space to get by them and continue the drag. Couple things to note about this map. These little areas here, peninsulas or whatever you want to call them, can be pylon spawns. If you're walking by them, you may not see them. So for example, if I was walking along over here, I may not see this little area here. I just might see the start of it and not uncover the full thing. You'll want to uncover the full thing because there can be a pylon spawn right here. Generally, there's one inside the door when you start and one right before the end of the map. So you'll want to check those. But otherwise, this is a phenomenal map. Lots of great pulling potential. They can have different tile sets where there is a square. So they could have came to here and this could have went down here and also been up there. And they could have just did a full square and then the door could have been up here or something like that. So there's lots of pull potential, usually really good mob density and elite density. And this is another map where you could go and pull and stack up and try to get another 5, 6-man condi or something like that, which will just skyrocket your progression. This is actually one of my favorite maps, and I kind of prefer this one more than Festering, but Festering, technically speaking, is a better map. Here we are in Spires, or otherwise known as Diablo. So this map can be hit or miss. They have these kind of tiles, so there are very big areas with lots of funnel potential, and sometimes these connect into like 3 sections or so. So like here you can see just how wide it is. It's nice and open, lots of drag possibility, usually really good mob density. There's a pylon spawn location kind of here. There'd be another one here. Then there's another one here. But anyway, so they have these kind of big areas, and this could even be a 3 section. So 1 section here, 2, and then there could have been another one here, or sometimes there's even like 4, and then it would branch out and go otherwise. So in this particular map, there's just all this lots of open area. They do have these long bridges, which can be sometimes lost time, but usually there's lots of density and you can lots of drag potential, which makes this kind of like an A- kind of map. That being said, sometimes you don't know the map how you're going to get. Sometimes it looks like this, where it is a short one. So you start to drag, come to this bridge, find this T, maybe pull from here back to here, and then the door. And this kind of a short map and the higher keys, all you're going to do is just get a few points of progression off trash and then bail because it won't be worthwhile to sit and fight the elites. But you never know what kind of tile you're going to get, so sometimes this map does turn into a little bit of a bust. But when I see it, I do run it because it has the potential to be the bigger one with lots of mobs, lots of drag, and so I'll give it a chance and see what happens. Here is another decent map. It is Shrouded Moors. I would give this a B rating. If I do run into this in a higher key, I will run it. And the reason being is that it is wider open. So there are lots of potential to kite things. This is pretty wide. You can easily kite all the way up to this T, pull down from here, and then drag down. Obviously, the map tiles are going to be different, but it's pretty wide open. There's only a couple instances here. As you can see, there are the occasional rocks, but otherwise it's fairly wide and lots of kite potential. And so I can, if I run into an elite at the start, I can drag it quite significantly. Trash types are usually pretty good, and you should at least get one pylon, if not sometimes two. There's a pylon spawn location here. I believe there's one up here, and then there's also one down by the door. So it's got lots of potential. I like it for the kiting, so I would give this a B tier. If I do run into this on a first key, I will run it. Okay, let's talk Desolate Sands, I believe is what this map is called. So it is the big desert map. I was trying to find one to show without some game footage, but I couldn't find it. Got tired of wasting keys, so here we are. So this is the big Desolate Sands map. It is big, wide open. There is nothing to get caught on. You can kite mobs for days. It is very huge, and it is misleading as to how strong of a quality map that is. The top half is actually usually filled with lots of trash and a few elites, and is very good progression wise. The bottom half is very not. There's a few chasms for things to get caught on. They have to kite around. Trash generally seems quite light. When you run this in a Nephilim key, it is always full, and you can do like a one map hit. And I think to compensate for that, they've reduced the trash, particularly in the bottom half, and so that makes it pretty ineffective. For this particular map, my strategy is to go across the top to the edge, come down about half, and then come back towards the entrance. So from you come in on the left, go to the right, go down, then go back to the left across the top of the little mountain there. And there potentially could be a pylon about where I'm standing at the moment. And then just, if there is, kind of gather up what I have, kill what I can, and then move down, and then move on to the next map. If things go well, you can leave this map with about 30 or 40% progression, and with a pylon spawn, or potentially if you were too quick to block the spawns, you can get off this map and onto the next one and have a quick pylon spawn on the next map. So that is my strategy for this one, because as soon as we start dipping down, one, we're then dragging things very, very far, and two, there's not as much density. You run a risk of spawning a second pylon in a bad location, and maybe with not enough trash or elites that have followed you down there to be fully utilized, and then you kind of find yourself in a bit of trouble. So I would recommend just going from come in, go to the right, go down half, come back to the left, go down the side here, and then kill what you need to, and then get off the map and onto bigger and better things. Here we are on Briarthorn Cemetery. So this is taken from Act 5, and they have graciously added it here for a greater rift floor. So this map is good for a few reasons. You see the layout. This is a sample tile. We have these big pull areas. So nice wide open. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 big areas. You can usually do this map in about 2 or 3 pulls. Pulling in from these areas, like this would be a combined 1 pull. This would be a 2 pull. Up here would be 3, and then you probably just go through to the door. You can also pull from back here into here. So that being said, that it's a great because it's got a few pull areas. Downside is you can see there's tons of little crap for things to get stuck on. So kiting can be a little bit of a problem. your best bet is to just kind of pull them into the big areas, whatever you can quickly, blow them up, and move on. There are a few pylon spawn locations, this being one. There would be one more down here, and then there's usually one in like these little areas here. So my recommendation is on this because it can be a juicy map. It can also be dangerous depending on what ads you get, but is to slowly work away, especially when you're at your end pushing, slowly work away on covering about half the map, try to get to your 33%, spawn a pylon, depending on what the pylon is power, shield, or conduit, whatever your most powerful pylon is. If you can use that to blow up all the ads or the elites that you have accumulated and pulled towards the pylon. If it's a condi or a power and you think you're just going to blow through it and get significant progress gains, you may want to block the rest of the map, so uncover to the door, so that you don't gather all the orbs and all that stuff from killing everything and go from like 33 to 60, which would be a high probability of another pylon spawn. Block it so that as you're leaving the map, after you killed everything, you don't move towards the door, and then finally you have a power here and there's nothing really to kill it with, or something like that regard. Or for, you use power down here, kill everything, move up here, now you have a condi and there's nothing to use it on. So my recommendation, uncover half, spawn the pylon, depending on how strong it is and how much progression you'll get from it, then kill everything else or explore the rest of the map, and then come back, use the pylon, and then move on to the next floor. Here we are in Field of Misery, the best map in the game right now, in my opinion. And the reason why it's so good is look at all this juicy open area. So we have big wide pass, we can easily pull in from multiple angles, and we can probably pull this whole map in just 2 or 3 pulls. So in this particular tile, we could have come down, set up here, pulled from here, 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 and all of this, and then just slightly move up, pull in, pull in, pull in, and then even move over to here and pull in and pull in. And then, on to the next map. In this particular one, it was a 1 map clear, but that's only because it was a low GR. Generally speaking, we're going to want to pull, this is a great map again for like one of those 5 or 6 man condis, or even a big shield. Shields are OP here in season 27, so even that. So we're going to just slowly uncover the map, pulling in trash and a few elites, getting the progression to spawn the first pylon. If you do spawn a shield and it's in a nice center of the map kind of position, or a conduit, you can feel free to pull the rest of the map, then get rid of the trash, and then go ham on the elites. I will say this, sometimes they hide an elite in the pathway to the exit, so if you uncover the exit, just do a little bit of exploration. Sometimes there's an elite in it that you could then pull out, pull to the conduit, shield, whatever, and blow them up as well. There are a couple spaces where things may get caught, but generally speaking, it is a really good pulling, kiting map because of all this open space. The only downside would be is if you encounter like a bunch of archers and all that, they are terrible at stacking, and there's nothing to like LOS them and force them to chase you, so they won't necessarily stack. But this is by far my favorite map. With all that open space, this is where we have lots of great progress. It is great for solo, group, everything is just phenomenal. And it doesn't take that long to uncover it all. The density is usually really good, and there's usually, I would say, 6 or 7 elites on this map. Number 1, my favorite. I just think this is the best map in the game. Can't say that enough. Just so key to pull in. Look at all the, I can't say enough about it. I love all this open area. It is just money. And of course, we have the possibility for those big shield pylons where we have 6, 7 elites to nuke them down, or a condi. Like, it is just such a progression map. By the time you leave this, if you are able to do this well, you'll leave this map with 70, sometimes 80% progression, and then you just need a quick 20 on the next map. So this brings us to the end of the video. I know this was a lot of information. It was a long video. I didn't anticipate it being this long, but I wanted to be thorough, and I wanted to share all my personal tips, tricks, suggestions, and things that I've learned, particularly in this season, not just from myself, but from other people as well that shared on my pushing journey, and I wanted to share them all with you. I hope you guys found this useful. If you have any questions or feedback or anything that you want to discuss, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer those. If you want to come chat to me personally, hit me up on Twitch. I'm on there almost every night. It is in the description. Come hang out with us there. Check it out. Love talking about Diablo 3, strategies, everything, gear, you name it. Love chatting about it. It's a passion. Come hang out with us. So like I said, as always, we appreciate likes, shares, and subscribes. So please click those buttons. And of course, I hope you're enjoying Diablo 3 Season 27, and I hope to see you in the next video.